I was like, my name's Nicole Kelly Walsh. I'm a dumpster baby from New York. That's exactly how you were. I was like, equal parts trying to like hold up this weird skit. And then you would be there like doing just what you're doing now. And I'd be like, come on, you're
Well, dumpster baby from New York.
The following program contains explicit material. If you are under 18 years old, please fuck off.
Welcome to Spinnin Yarns. I'm your host, Joe Amero, and I, for one, could have been dead many times over a long time ago. But for some reason, I'm still here. I've had a crazy life and met a ton of amazing people along the way who've inspired me. I'm going to invite some of these folks here to share some of their incredible and unbelievable stories with us. Who knows, we may even learn something along the way. There's way too much bullshit in this life. We need more real talk from real people. So sit back, chill out, and listen up, because we're spinning yarns. Welcome back to Spinnin Yarns. I'm your host, Joe Amero. We run Hi-Fi Umbilical Productions like a collective, and we'll put out requests for notes on projects, and got my notes back, and probably not going to follow any of them. They were like, don't wear your glasses, have to wear my glasses or have an ocular migraine and go blind. I don't have them on now just because I thought that was funny. Hopefully I don't go blind in this intro. I mentioned that I loved podcasts on the last episode and that they saved my life. I started with True Crime Garage with Nick and the Captain. That's a true crime podcast. It's the first one I got into, and pretty good. Just two dudes drinking beer, talking about serial killers, and I found that helpful on the drive to work. I have a better day when I know all of the gory details of a grisly murder before I start my job. Then I got into Morbid with Ash and Elena. Also true crime, also like spoopy ghost story stuff. Hilarious podcast. Really good, really well researched, and really well executed. I love Criminal with Phoebe Judge. Just tiny little stories, and Phoebe's voice is just so soothing, and it's so well produced. Ear Hustle, Erlon Woods and Nigel Poor, and this started in San Quentin prison, and it's like prison stories, and Erlon was a prisoner when they started it, and Nigel would come in and they'd interview prisoners and hear their stories, and then Erlon was released through one of the seasons, and they still do it, and it's really good, really insightful, really well done. I love Sex Stories with Wyo Lee. It's just like talking to people about all their kinks and different things they're into with their personal sexual escapades. And of course, Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman and Juan Gonzalez. And that's just like your true and real alternative news source. The same goes for Garth Mullins with Crackdown, reporting from the drug war. And if you're looking for a really good laugh, check out Valley Heat by Doug Duguay. It's a work of art. My guest today is Christine Star Gale, one of my oldest living and best friends. We could talk about a million things, but today we're just going to talk about one crazy trip we took down stateside to the US of A, and all the crazy shit that happened while we were there. And not even all of it. Here it is. The truth is stranger than fiction. And here's Star with some truth. This is Star. Can I say your full name? You're not in the witness protection program or anything. This is Christine Star Gale.
Definitely
right?
not the witness protection program.
This is like one of my best friends, probably my oldest living friend on the planet Earth, right here.
I'm 86.
Yeah, and you came in last minute to chat with me, and thank you so much for sitting down and joining me here on this, whatever this is. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, man.
What's new and exciting? Where in the world are you?
Montreal.
Right.
Montreal, Quebec.
Yeah, and I've always been allergic to Montreal a little bit, where I go there and then I break out in like PCP.
Well, at least it's not handcuffs.
Yeah. No, I never had any trouble with the law. Well, they just as far as like, go home English. We have our own trash ear. It's like, okay. But yeah, a lot of PCP. Do you ever see Johnny Joe or Rod? They're in Montreal, right?
I don't see Johnny Joe. And Rod I haven't seen for like 11 years. Like I saw him once. He he came over in like this beat up car to my apartment and took me out for a submarine sandwich.
Nice. Did you go to Mr. Sub, or is there a Montreal sub franchise?
We have
Monsieur Submarine.
out here, but he brought me to Dagwood's, I think it's called.
That sounds like a good sandwich.
I didn't like it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm a big fan of Mr. Sub meatball or pizza sub circa like 1897, and they just don't make them like they used to.
No, but except for in Hamilton, they do. Hamilton is a sub town. I'm telling you, there's like, you can get a $5 footlong sub in Hamilton still. It's a big sub town.
Right? You can get me a $5 footlong.
I will. I'll get you a fucking meatball sub proper from Mr. Sub that you'll think you're in 1997.
But next month at the end of the month, I'll be there.
Yeah, it's a date. You got it, man. What extra cheese, extra meatballs? Whatever you want. What do you get on it? What do you get on it? You go like, I keep it simple. I like just like the sauce, the meatballs, the cheese. Like, do you go all like?
Sometimes I'll do a green pepper or black olive. It depends though. I have to really be in the mood for it.
Yeah, I think you get into olives and these things, and you're really fucking up a good sandwich. I don't pickles. I would never put a pickle on a sandwich, but I like it on the side.
On a meatball?
On any sandwich. Like if you get
I'll take a pickle on like a burger.
No, I don't even like that.
What kind of pickle?
Like pickle, like sandwich, like bread and butter pickles. What do they put on a sandwich? Like dill pickles.
I don't like those. I like Polsky Gorkies.
Yeah, proper dill. Proper. Yeah. You like a Vlasic?
Okay. I'm a big fan of the no-name Polsky Gorkies.
Okay.
And I will tell you, they're gone. Every time you go to the grocery store, the aisles are free of Polsky Gorky no-name pickles. Actually, I got some dill pickle chips right fucking here.
What?
Yeah.
Where are they now? Vlasic, not a sponsor, but a damn good pickle.
The stork, right? Could be.
Yeah.
Could be a sponsor.
Vlasic. The pickle of.
What would that ad boat look like?
I don't even know.
How would you tie that into the yarn spinning?
I don't know. The stork comes and it's like, no, oh, thank God. It's just a pickle,
It would be like, here at Yarn Spinning, it's hard work and we get hungry and nothing just refuels our engines like a Vlasic pickle. You're going to have a little code, 20% off.
You get 20% off at the grocery store if you say yarn spinning at checkout.
Yarn spinning, it's the code.
They'd be like, what?
Maeve, tell Maeve she's at checkout too.
You tell them Twitchy sent you.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. I don't know. We did pretty good on our. This is a brand new thing I'm doing, and we did pretty good the first time out. We're killing it with Canadian women 33 to 45. So,
That's awesome. I hear that's a good market though.
Yeah. That's my fan base right now. I don't know. It's weird. I'm going for it though. I got all kinds of shit lined up, but I'm glad you're here. I didn't expect you to have
You and
uh
Drake killing it, and the Canadian women from 30 sharing the same fan base as Drake.
but Drake, yeah, I'm a lot. Yeah. If I'm like anyone, it's Drizzy, you know. I'm the Dill Pickle Pappy. That's what they call me at the Raptors games when I, you know. No, but it's good to have you on. I wanted you on for sure. I mentioned you in the first episode because I was just doing like a linear, run through my life, just kind of talking about stuff, and our trip came up. So I wanted to have you on just to talk about that, because sometimes I think about it. And anytime someone talks about like hitchhiking or a trip, well, I had a crazy trip, I listen, I'm like, like that, like the fuck was that? That's shit's weak, and I think about our
But
trip.
also, half the time I never say any of those things to anybody because I'm like, nobody's gonna fucking believe me. What's the point? Like,
I know, and it's such a crazy story that you can't really stop. Like you have to kind of like give the whole thing start to finish, right? And then by that time, people are like, like scared. They're like, oh, "You're my boss,"
yeah.
like they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm at work."
Anyways, you gotta smoke.
Yeah, smoking here, right? But yeah, that's cool. I want to we'll run through that the best we can at this stage to see what we remember. We'll compare notes now. It's been 25 years. Now we'll compare notes and see what lands in the side of truth. But
Has it been 20 years?
oh fuck, I don't, yeah, at least 20 years.
It's been at least 20, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, 21, 22. I don't know. It's like a long time ago now.
You're right. I think it's 25.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But you'd had obviously like lived some life before then, like tell us like where you're from. Where'd you grow up?
I was born in London, Ontario. But I kind of grew up a little bit all over the place. I spent the best years of my childhood in British Columbia.
Oh,
And
beautiful British Columbia.
beautiful British Columbia. It was big fun. And then we moved back and lived in like rural southwestern Ontario, the Middlesex County, as they call it, and went back to London. And yeah, I ended up on the streets when I was pretty young.
How young? You were really young.
I was real young. I was on and on, like sleeping in stairwells and stuff like that. Or my sister, at one point, my older sister, the courts gave her guardianship over me when she was 21, and I think I was 15. So that was fun because they were trying to figure it out. But I was really young, yeah. One of the things that I often say is like for many years I didn't realize, like I was still trying to go to high school and stuff like that, and I had no idea that you could be like a cool traveling street kid. Like that was not my experience.
You thought you had to be homeless but still like do your homework.
Yeah. For real. Oh, that's totally what I was doing.
Well, it makes sense. You're a kid and you're like, that's
yeah.
you're like trying to hang on to some semblance of normality and keep it together, right? Like that would be the responsible thing to do. But I mean, it's not it's not very practical.
It wasn't very practical, and I lucked out in the sense that I found a community of people that thought I was cool. I tricked them, and
you tricked them. No.
I tricked them. And yeah, then I started, I guess, I still would try to get through school and stuff like that. And I even made choices, like I was traveling back and forth from Toronto to London and other places because I wanted to like finish probation finally.
Is that a graduation?
Yeah. It was brutal, man. There
Did
was
you
like
have, did you have a probation party?
No. I I can't remember that time very well. I remember that around the same time that I cleared out my probation, I lost one of my teeth on the bottom. And I remember being more focused on that than a probation party. That was
Yeah.
Rod, actually, that we were talking about earlier in the show that knocked that tooth out.
Then you must have finally been like, okay, this is not fucking real. Like, I'm not going to go to school and live in this town. You left and went to Toronto, right? And we're like
Mm,
full fledged. Like you weren't trying to go to school in Toronto, be homeless there now and try to be
no,
going to school.
like 16 or 17, that kind of started to fade away. And then I went, I actually, one of the reasons why I finally was like, fuck it, was I had gotten into an art annex program at HB Beale. And I was pretty stoked on that. And then I got kicked out of school because I had no fixed address. And I know, like, in doing research and work on that now, they've really changed that, because that's pretty fucked up if you have a kid that's still trying to go to school. But that used to be on the books. If you somebody didn't have custody of you and you were under the age of 18 and you had no fixed address, you weren't allowed to go to high school. And so at that point, I was just like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
My parents kicked me off welfare. I was like, dude, I'm barely ever on this shit in the first place. And then that was it. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done trying to figure this out. And so then I started traveling.
And where's the first place you went? Montreal?
No, I think the first, like, I'd already been spending like quite a bit of time in Toronto, on the streets of Toronto. I'd already been like there. So I think I went to Toronto. I think I moved into I think Jack and Jesse lived in that house that was in front of the 28 Oxford. And I think I ended up living there for a time.
Right. That's like
Yeah.
like the fort days
The
of
new
the
at that point it was the new fort. It wasn't
okay.
the old fort, but then a few years later it became the old fort. So yeah,
Yeah.
street in the market there.
That's right before my time. Like I wasn't around then. I was still going to school like a good kid, you know? No, but I was, you know? And then I came around shortly after that. We started to go to Central Tech, and it was like an art program that was like, I was trying to keep Hal in school. So I talked him into going to this art program, which was a blessing because that's where we met Paul, right? Who's
Yeah.
Dynamo, and we made Hobo Banditos, and the rest is history, right? So it all worked out. But it's funny that there's a nice parable, right? About the art school. Just a couple struggling artists trying to make it in this, you know, just a couple of Vlasics trying to make it in a Dagwood world.
I mean, there's something I always think about that, and I think about how hard I tried to get through high school, like how important that was to me. And I still to this day, like, I don't have any idea why, because
I
my
know.
life was absolute, like, anybody would have been like, yeah, you don't have to go to school today.
Yeah.
Like, you woke up in your fucking pea coat in that stairwell of the Radisson Hotel. Like, you can just, did you not get your homework done? Like,
Yeah.
it's okay. But I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. Like, I don't know why I tried so hard.
Yeah. That was just in your head. I guess that's the training, right? That's ingrained in us. Like you're like thinking like I'm a fucking kid. Like I have to go to school or I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna get in shit. Meanwhile, it's like you're homeless. Like there's literally nobody gonna give you shit.
I know. And that was the other thing too. I think part of it was like I was, even when I was still trying to go to school, like I was doing drugs and I was hanging out with like a crowd of people. Like, if you were like a fuck up and a weirdo at high school and you were doing drugs with the popular kids, like that was okay. But like you couldn't be like a real fuck up and weirdo that was like homeless.
Yeah. On real drugs.
Yeah, that's right. Right. I was like trying to hold it together so I could, like, I don't know, have this peer group at high school, but it was just a fucking mess.
Yeah. Well, fuck them. I mean, and then what? You said you just started traveling. You just like
Yeah.
what was your first big trip? Was it like hopping a train or were you hitchhiking or what? Like what did you do?
Hitchhiking. I
Yeah.
always hitchhiked. Yeah, nobody ever kicked me down a bunch of fucking money on a freight train.
Right.
So, I think my first real like big trip would have been out to Nova Scotia out to Halifax. And that was the first time I went through Montreal. I didn't spend much time in Montreal. I was like, it's fucking weird here and hard to find places to sleep. And yeah, so that was my first big trip, was out to Halifax and back. And then I just, over the years, was like, that was like a circuit, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful there. And then when you got there and saw the ocean, you must have been like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I had my first dog then, junkyard dog, and we went running on the rocks at Peggy's Cove. And I was like, this is amazing, you know? And I have a lot of family from out there, but it was family that I didn't really know that well. And yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah. A ton of my family's from out there.
Right? Yeah. And I really got hooked on that. I got hooked on traveling by myself and just my dog. That was something I got pretty hooked on.
Yeah. I think when I met you, was just shortly after Junkyard Dog. I think you had the tattoo, or you were getting the tattoo,
I would have.
You had it already on your leg when I met you. Yeah. So we came in after Junkyard Dog.
Yeah.
And I think I met you the first time I met you. I think it was like we rented the top of Megan's apartment, like another apartment at that house in Little Italy, like Grace and Harbor. And I think then that was the first time I met you, where I think she rented you like a room in her basement, and it was like, this is my friend Star, and she's gonna live here. And it was like, okay. Is that the first time we met?
I remember you used to tell me a different story about the first time that you ever met me, because when when me and you met the first time, like, I mean, we got along okay, but it was more me and Harry that were like, you know, because I was really a mess. Like, and I remember you being like, you were kind of standoffish, and also, anyways. But I remember you told me a story once we started to like hang out and really get to know each other, which wasn't long because, you know, it was slim pickings for people at the time.
Yeah. For good people to hang out with. Yeah. It was I totally put the Toronto punk scene on blast in my inaugural episode. And like, could come back and apologize. Like, there's some great bands. Like, I love Armed and Hammered to this day. Fantastic band. Random Killing, you know, but like, the rest of it can, you know, fuck right off. Like, it was some bunch of fucking goofs for real, you know, like just lame scene, lame people, like shitty, like in all the little, you know, segregated scenes with the little posty punks, they all sucked. And then like the shitty punks are like, yo, we wear jogging pants because it's easier to fight. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, get the fuck away from me, all of you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, anyways, yeah, there's lots of stuff that I could say about that, because I think that there was a lot of harm that was done, you know, just being kids that were younger, and the generation gap can seem so huge, you know, and there was a lot of harm that was done because a lot of us were struggling with drug use, and there was just this hypocrisy that was often like held up with like brute violence.
Yeah.
And like stuff, like, I don't know why that doesn't.
Yeah, they went to war with drug users and centered them out, and fucking like, we're horrible to them. Like, you know, if you did these drugs, you know, if you, like, it's like I sniff coke, so I'm better than a crackhead kind of mentality. Like, and just like, you know, if you huff glue, you're a piece of shit. Like, it was there's like Nazis about shit. It was fucking weird. And they also, like, you've seen a lot of talk about preying on vulnerable people, like a lot of chicken hawking going on with these older dudes in that scene. It was just like disgusting, that you never want to be associated with ever, you know? And so fuck them, you know, like the guilty will catch offense. I don't have to name names, you know?
No.
Like,
I
fuck
think
them.
one of the things that like I realized, like, you know, I made my own choices and stuff like that, but a lot of the, like, I was really harsh. I was harsh when I was on the streets, and some of the people I was the harshest to were young women like myself that were also out there, because I wanted people to know that, like, I couldn't be fucked with, and I wanted people to know that I wasn't prey. And it was a lot of like mimicking this like misogynistic bullshit in that scene that I look back on now and I'm like, well, that was fucked up. Like, could you imagine some like poor kid coming out to just be like, oh, I just want to see what it's like, and I'm there like, you're not for here, you don't like, that's awful.
Well, it's a big crazy world. Too bad. Then you might have, you know, inadvertently saved somebody's life, because they probably weren't for there, you know, like in the long run. So,
But I
fuck it. That was just your own survival tactics kicking in. You were just trying to like live.
Yeah. But I remember you told me that the first time, I remember one time when me and you started like really hanging out, and it was when I was living at Megan's, and you were like, I remember when I first met you. I was like, what? I was like, I don't remember. And you told me that we were on a streetcar together. Do you remember this? And I was talking shit because you were like, you were all decked out in like punk stuff. And I was with some other grubby person on the streetcar. You were something because I was like, why don't we ever hang out and get to know each other more? And you were like, oh, you want to hang out with a punk rocker like me now?
Yeah.
Like, this story.
Yeah, well, I definitely seen you around before you lived at my house. And I knew I knew of you. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember you were like, oh, you were like, okay, we could be friends now.
Yeah. Well, you get it's like guilty by preconception, right? That first impression, it really is everything, right? I mean, if it,
Yeah.
it's like you're gonna like I remember seeing people and having my own mind made up of how they were completely like fuck this guy, hate this guy, and then one day they take their sunglasses off and I realize I never seen them without sunglasses on, and I see their eyes and they're like, and it's just like, oh, they look like such a nice person, and I talked to them and they're like the nicest person I ever met. They're not who they were, who I had created for them while they had their shades on. It was just, that's just the person you've seen. Like we do that, right? That we're all like, we have those, that's prejudice, right? Like we just create that shit with our own narrative. And for people who don't, or just, they don't deserve it. They're just trying to live their life and survive too, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I seen you a few times like around, like you were pretty rowdy, right? You were outspoken, we'll say. And like
I don't even, I can't even, I don't even remember that. I know I rarely made good first impressions because I wasn't aware of what was happening outside of like the fucking chaos yarn ball around my head.
yeah.
Like somebody was like right there talking to me, or in a fight with me, or I literally couldn't just register what's going on.
Well, it takes time, and then we grow, we live, and we learn.
And then we ended up living in that house on Harvard or Grace.
Grayson Harvard, yeah. And that's why I really remember meeting you, because that's where we became friends, right? Like that's where it was like we got to know each other and it was like, oh, I love this chick. She's, she's actually right on. She's not, like I got to understand you. It was like, oh, I get her. She's hilarious, and that's where it was like, let's take part in all of that, So that's why it was good times for sure. It was you and me and my brother Harry and our brother Tags, right?
Mm-hmm.
Little Stevie, right? And he was around a lot, like all the time. He practically lived in Harry's room. And then whoever, that whole other cast of rotating characters, supporting characters that would just be through, right? And some of them are still alive. Do it there, some of them are not. So it was from there. I know there was like drugs. There's so much drugs. And that's when, heroin came into my world, and that was the catalyst to take off. That's why I wanted to go on the trip. And I remember you were of the same mind. Like you were wired up pretty good to heroin then, and you're like, let's get the fuck out of here. Like that's what we need to just get far away from here. Let's just fucking go, and that's what we did when we hit the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think both of us, I know I certainly had a few times at that point already caught a habit, and not like a serious one, but enough where I was like, yeah, this is like, I don't know. You were there. I got to take you to London to meet all.
Yeah, that's where I met Johnny Joe and Rod and Jacko Jakonowski and
Right.
Tay Chuck and all that whole and Dez and Barb and all the whole London crew.
Yeah.
That was a good time too.
Yeah, I remember when we went to London, we were still like, yeah, we're gonna go to the States. Maybe we'll go to who knows where we'll go. And then Kane, Jack's not very intelligent, gigantic dog knocked Ivy up.
Right. Yeah.
And then we were like, oh. And then at that point, I was like, I have to go south. I was like, I'm not going to be homeless in Canada in the middle of the winter with with my dog and puppies. I'm going to be homeless in the States
In a foreign country
with my dog and puppies.
Yeah.
Shopping cart in San Francisco. So that was when me and you were like, no, it's on. We're going to get our way across the border because Ivy's going to have puppies.
Yeah, Ivy was awesome. I love Ivy. That was a good dog. And then we're like, what? So we were like, how do we get which way do we go? Right. So we're like, whoa, we'll go across the Ambassador Bridge. Windsor goes right to Detroit. No problem. We'll just walk across this bridge. We'll be in the States. So we're like, okay. So we hitchhiked to Windsor by way of London. Right. We partied there for like a week or two first. And then
Yeah.
we went to Windsor. And then
it was actually only 3 days or something, but it felt
probably.
like
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah. It was debauchery.
Yeah.
But I remember when we got to Windsor, then we went to some bar and you had Ivy. So everything right away was like, okay, well, we can't do anything that won't allow a dog, right? It was like, well,
There was that, but I think also there was my warrants.
Yeah. You had
warrants. Away.
Dog with no papers. And no problem. We went to this bar, we're panning, and then some dude was like, you can bring your dog in here. It's cool. Remember this guy? He started buying us drinks. We were like, hey, this is all right. And then it was like fucking freezing, right? It was like November, snowing, Windsor. And then he was like, invited us home. And he's like, you can come have something to eat and just crash and hit the road in the morning because it was late. And then we were probably drunk by that point because he was feeding us, drinks. And then we went to his place and everything was pretty cool. It was a nice place. It was normal. Everything, we weren't scared or anything until he pulled out the package of love letters that he had written to his girlfriend, and they were all tear stained. And remember,
that was the truck driver that almost pushed us over the cliff.
No, that was him too. But this guy did it too. He ate all these pills. Remember, he's like, you want some of these pills?
Yeah,
he's drinking red wine and he's reading these letters and crying. It was a theme on that trip. That happened a lot, but that's where it started. And we were just like, holy fuck, dude.
I just remember his apartment. I remember his apartment being like something like, I don't know, like what Al Bundy's apartment looked like before he got married. Like, I remember I was just like, what the fuck? This place is like.
I remember house plants. I thought it was a cool little setup. Maybe I remember it differently. The only thing that stood out was this weird box of letters that he wanted to read to these strange kids from Toronto. But we got the fuck out of there in the morning. He drank himself to sleep and had a cry, and he was having a hard time, whatever. And then we got the fuck out of there. And then we're downtown Windsor, like, okay, now we're gonna find out right away, after breakfast, that you can't just walk across this bridge. That's not a thing. It's not like.
Best thing too is like, I'd love to be able to be like, we were only 12, but we were like 20-year-old like drunks.
Yeah, like I think I was like 18. I'm 45 now.
No, you must have been 19 because I turned 20 in California, I think.
Okay, well, 19, 18, 19, 20. Yeah. We weren't 12, that's for sure. Well, and we were drunk.
I say that too because I remember like the kind of like this weird, which was another theme of the trip, like this childhood like optimism, like it'll just work out. Like I remember
fucking stupidity. It was pure stupidity.
We're sitting there looking at the river. Do you remember this drinking? And we were like, what do you think? Like a dinghy? Like it seems like a fucking comedy sketch.
We're talking about making a raft. We could make something and just float over there, like no problem. We're gonna make a raft, like. But then we're like panhandling downtown Windsor, and we meet this woman, and she buys us like a bunch of gloves and toques and all this gear and all this cool stuff and food, and she was just like was really generous, and then came back and was like chatting with us and found we told her we were trying to go across the border to get into the States, and she's like, I can take you there. Why don't you come home, have some dinner, everybody wants to give you the full package, right? Come home and have some dinner. I'll read you these letters from my ex-lover. Give you some pills. No, she just wanted to wash our clothes, but she washed my pants and they fell apart in her washing machine. And then her sister came home. She was a mail carrier and her sister was a cop, right? And they lived with their mom, both of them.
Yeah, or some like it was some military thing, because that's the ID that I use, the fake ID I use to get across the border.
She was a cop.
Now hold on a second here. Did we already have all that like shitty like stem and seed weed that we were traveling with, or did they give it to us?
No, I don't remember. I don't think we got, maybe the guy the night before gave it to us.
Because we crossed the border with that.
Well, it wasn't her. And so it must have been him.
In that big home bum pickle bag that we had.
Yeah. Yeah. The military. the old Vlasic duffel.
Yeah. But I also remember like, what the fuck, like, were we thinking that we were just like, oh shucks, it and forgot that we had all this shitty weed in a bag. I've got like my pit bull.
Yeah, fuck it, pregnant pit bull and a bag of weed, and then we go to. She goes to drive us across the border at night after dinner, and
makes me put makeup on, and push my hair back.
Yeah, and then Ivy's is like under my feet in the back seat under a blanket. And I got the bag of weed beside me, and we go through and she's like, don't worry about it. Just be cool. And she's just
military ID or whatever.
Yeah. And then she just mentioned some fucking like football game or a basketball game or some bullshit that we're going over for, like, go, Storks or whoever. I don't even know what the fuck it was. And they were like, yeah. The border guard was like, yeah. Then we just waved us through. We drove through, and then she dropped us off. We're like downtown Detroit. She's like, all right, have a safe trip. And we're like, yeah, we did it. We're all like, yes, yes, yes. And then we're like, oh no, we're in Detroit, like downtown, cold.
There is a prop, like I don't know if you ever go to any of the parks, like the provincial parks, and you'll go in and like there's like a perfectly prop fox sitting there playing with a turtle that's crossing. We go to Detroit and there's a dude sitting there in front of the theater. We go through that moment and he looks at us and he's like, you shouldn't be here. Yeah. I was like, are you a prop?
Yeah. We're like, what the fuck? I remember like Fiona Apple was playing.
I remember that until you wrote that.
Yeah, there was a Fiona Apple concert going on downtown. Everything else was on fire, like they're boarded up, and there was like one street that looked like a little market, kind of with some patios, like bars and shit. And then all of a sudden, this cab rips up, and we're trying to go around to the party store. We're trying to change our money. We had some Canadian money they laid on us.
Before the cab ripped up, it was the guy that was selling T-shirts out in front of that theater. Do you remember? That was the guy that was like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "You guys gotta get out of here."
Even the Fiona Apple T-shirt bootlegger knew we had to get the fuck out of Detroit. Yeah. But that cabbie rips right up, and like I remember he screeched right up beside us, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" Like it was scary. Like, what is this? And he's like, hey, like, well, yeah. He's like, what the fuck are y'all doing down here? I'm like, I'm sorry, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, you need to be at Trumbull and Willis. Yeah, like,
what are those words?
Well, we're just trying to change our money. We're looking for a party store. He's like, you ain't going to no fucking party store. He's like, get in the fucking cab. We're like, okay. We jump in the cab, and he's like, I don't know what to fucking tell you. He's like, but you're gonna die. You're gonna die down here tonight. We're like, what? He's like, like you're not going to the party store. You're not going nowhere. You're going to Trumbull and Willis. There's some white kids who live there, got funny hair, and maybe they'll take care of you. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. We're like, what the fuck? So he drives us to Trumbull and Willis, and it's just like, yeah, it's just like abandoned factories and shit. And then this house, it was like Paper Street and Fight Club, right? It was just like this house. It was like, what is this?
Tiger Stadium. Yeah.
And the fucking cabbie's gone. So we're like, okay. We knock on the door. We don't hear anything. So we knock again. And then the light turns on and we hear a baby start crying. We're like, oh fuck, what are we doing? And the guy rips the door open and he's like, what the fuck? What do you want? And we're like, oh, we're sorry, man. Some cabbie brought us here, told us we need to come to Trumbull and Willis because there was like white kids with funny hair who would put us up. We thought it was like a squad or something. We're really sorry, man. He's like, a squad? This is my fucking house. You just woke my baby up. What the fuck, man? We're like, we're really sorry. We're not from here. We're sorry. A dude just brought us here. We're completely sorry. And he's like, I'm just fucking with you. This is the Trumbull and Willis Anarchist Collective. You're more than welcome here. Hold on a second. We're like, okay.
We slept in
Okay.
the theater, the stage.
Yeah, he fires up the heater in the theater that was between the two houses. I guess they had two houses, and this theater space in the middle. It was really cool. Turned the big overhead heater on for us. And we had a bag of sandwiches there. Did he give that to us?
I think
We
he
had
gave
that.
us
He gave us a bag of sandwiches. And we just ate some sandwiches and laughed our ass off.
life. We've
Yeah.
arrived.
Then in the
Yeah.
morning, he comes and gets us. He's like, come on, have a coffee. Makes us coffee. And starts showing us all these pictures of his trip to Africa. And it turns out you knew some people in common with him, like in Toronto from the ARA or some shit, which is like anti-racist action group that was going on back then. And he was nice as shit. And he's like, you don't want to stick around Detroit. He's like, there's nothing here. He's like,
with Aaron.
I don't know. But I just remember the pictures of the African trip. And then he drove us to Money Exchange. And he's like, and then, that was it. And then we hit the road out of Detroit. And he's like, he mentioned something about the ICP. He's like, you don't want to hang out here, man. There's nothing here unless you like, like clowns that make it. It's like, what? Then we're like, no, we're good. We're going, we're going south.
Where were we going? Were we going to New Orleans or were we going to California? I can't remember.
Well, we just wanted to get warm. We didn't have a plan. We just wanted to get to as far as we could until it started to get warm. And I remember by the time when we got to Louisiana, and we said, okay, you want to go to New Orleans or Texas? And then I was like, well, fuck, the Butthole Surfers are from Texas. We got to go to Austin and check that out. I thought that would be cool. So that was like the coin flip, right? But before we got to Shreveport, we had to go through like Kentucky and Nashville and all that shit. And that's where we met that weird ass trucker had the gun in his glove box and was like, you remember this guy, you remember his name.
How much do you think you weigh? How much does he weigh? What about the dog?
Yeah, I weigh more than all of you
put together.
Okay. And then he's like, open that glove box. You open it and there's like a fucking 45 Magnum sitting in there. Like, whoa. He's like, whoa, excuse me. Gets a legal pad out from underneath it. And he's like, read that out loud. And it's like, right away, it's like, I think I said, like, I think this might be like, of a personal nature. This might be. So it was like, dear whore, I know you fucked my neighbor. That's why I cut his face. So every time he looks in the mirror, he remembers me and that you're a whore. And it was like, holy fuck. He's like,
remember, he's like, I don't care. He's like, I see your mother in the grocery store. I'm going to knock her over. I see your little cousin out in the street. Going to push him in the mud.
Yeah, he's like, don't let me catch one of them kids getting off the school bus. I'll knock them right in the dirt. I don't give a fuck. Then he's like, pulls over in the Kentucky mountains, like in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, get out.
Remember me and you were like going back and forth between being like, oh my God, I think we're going to die. And then being like, but it's gorgeous. It's really nice.
It's a nice place to die. But he's like, walk out into the forest. We're like, holy fuck.
And then that cliff.
And then we're at the edge of a cliff. And then he's like,
with his arms around us.
Yeah. Now isn't that a sight to behold? Don't that make you forget all your troubles? Like, yeah. It's really nice, man. It's beautiful.
Imagine like the dirt roll down at our toe tips down to this freaking cliff.
Oh, I thought that was it. Then he drives us into town. It's like crack of dawn, Flying J truck stop. He's like, get the fuck out. I'm not feeding you. I'm not doing nothing. Fucking, if you stole anything from me, I'll hunt you down and kill you. Fuck off. We're like, whoa. Thought he'd be good for some flapjacks or something, but no way. He was just like, get the fuck out.
And then the next guy was the guy that was on speed. The next trucker.
Yeah. The
He was
toothpicks.
convinced, wouldn't stop. Tell me about how Ivy could be a fighting dog. And I was like, no, she can't. She literally can't be a fighting dog. And wouldn't shut up about PCP. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Once he knew we were from Canada.
Yeah, was convinced at some point we were going to be like, oh, you're right. We're just shitting. Yeah, here's our big bag of PCP we were hiding.
Yeah. Can have this moldy weed in my duffel bag if you want it. He's got like toothpicks floating in like, like I don't know what, but and just pure amphetamine and Sprite or whatever. And he's just chewing the toothpicks at 100 miles an hour.
That guy
Yeah,
was
it was crazy. But there must have been some other rides. Was the army guy before we got to Louisiana?
No, the army guy, the army guy was in Texas. It was around the same time we find that flat of beer on the road.
Right. Find a case of beer. This young army dude is just like, you guys are fucking right on. He's like, you guys are right fucking on. That's why I joined the military. Is travel, man. That's what I like. I'm a free spirit too. I used to have long hair, man. I used to have long hair. I'm like, okay. He's like, I'm gonna buy you this bag of tacos. You just come to my house, just mow down, man. Make yourself at home. I got to go to work at the army in the morning, but you guys just hang out. Just hang out all you want. And then he like left at like 500 hours or whatever. We were like, what the fuck, man? I want to like, were we hanging out here? Like, let's get the fuck out of here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there was that guy. I can't remember if there was other rides. I think there was like some, but like those two truckers stuck out so much because I was like, this is out of a fucking, this is like Pee Wee Herman's Great Adventure. Like you're fucking for real. There's like,
yeah, Large Marge.
yeah, it was so ridiculous. And in Shreveport too, the vultures. We got stuck in Shreveport for a while. That was ridiculous. We decided that we were going to go across to Texas, but we're sitting there on our bags, taking turns hitchhiking. And then all of a sudden there's like vultures. And we were so excited when we got to Shreveport because it had been snowing when we came through Nashville and stuff. We were like, yes, we made it. And then we're just fucking stuck on the side of the highway for hours. And vultures are like
getting closer. Circling closer and closer. We're like, we're not like, fucking dead yet, motherfucker.
Once in a while and be like, fuck off. And then they're like, oh, okay.
Okay.
We'll be back.
Yeah. We heard you're from Canada. We just want to see if you had any PCP. Yeah. They got the fuck out of there. And then I don't know. There's a gap, but we must have got a ride right from there. Where do we go first in Texas? Because that was the goal then. We're going to Texas. Dallas?
Dallas was first, yeah.
Yeah, so we saw the book depository and the grassy knoll, right? It was like, okay. And then one of the Bonnie or Clyde, I don't remember which one. One of them is buried there.
Did our first like good bout of like stateside panhandling where you're like a fucking millionaire because you got all the
greenbacks, baby. We were, you felt like you had a big roll, but it's like $13 or whatever. Like, oh, well, we want to split some fries.
You guys got to get on the Toonie train.
Yeah. But we did good panning and we did all right. We kind of
deep.
Yeah, that's in Dallas too, right? Yeah. So Dallas was, then we got to Deep Ellum, and that was like the hipster, like that was like the Queen West Village of Dallas, right? That was like bars and all the coolies and all the tattoo rockabillys and all that shit.
They're gonna like pick us up and take us to their nice houses in the suburbs and fucking nice places to sleep and
give us bright white Crass t-shirts. And that's where we went to that kid's house. And that's when Beavis and Butthead died. That was the finale of Beavis and Butthead. We watched
watching it in that big living room.
Yeah, big screen, man. They just kept getting shot with the machine gun. Like, ow, that sucks. This sucks. Ow. Like, whoa. But the kid was like, we were sleeping in that haunted high school. I know you remember that. Yeah,
I do remember that. Yeah.
That was fucked up.
Michael Jackson paraphernalia.
Yeah, that was fucking scary, man. We were in like a wood shop, right? So like all the presses and like bench, all the tools were ripped out, but you could tell it used to be a wood shop. And then there was like an office in the corner, and we slept on the roof of it. So we were like pretty safe because no one could like really walk in without us hearing them come, right? Yeah. Excuse me. And then I just remember seeing people walking around in there, and it was like, but you're not hearing anything, and you couldn't walk across it without making noise because it was just full of shit, right? Debris, and
That was the other thing. That was the thing that made it so creepy. Is it literally looked like one day people were at school and then they were like closing it up, and there was like books and like school, like
probably
fucking
because
like
it
clothes. It was fucking weird.
yeah, it was probably contaminated with like, asbestos or something, or, we shouldn't have been in there. But I remember being in the stalls of the washroom and someone coming in and kicking. I was in the end stall because it was like the half decent, cleanest toilet, to take a shit in. And then someone coming in, booting all the other stalls in. And I was like coming down the line towards me. And I'm like, holy fuck, but I'm like mid, like bowel movement, So it was like, just like shitting. You can't, like, you're stuck. It was like, fuck. And then it was like, it came to my stall and nothing happened because there was no one there because it was a fucking poltergeist, It was like, holy fuck.
That was fucking, that was
kid,
it. There's some things I don't know if I want to talk about on the podcast, but I do remember it was one of the skills that I did have was I could drink most people under the table. Do you remember that?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that kid was like loaded, and we were all loaded. And he's like, "You guys can stay at my house, but you have to drive my car." And I was like, "Okay." And then I was like, "We have to go to our squat and get our stuff." And I crashed his car. Like I'm driving his car all through downtown Dallas. I'm like, "Hey, Star, look, I'm driving this guy's car."
No, I remember laying in the back seat because I thought I was going to be sick. And I remember you were like going into on the freeway in the overpass, like out of Dallas because they were in the suburbs. And you were like fully hanging over between the car. You were like, no, look, though, I'm driving the car. And I was like, drive the fucking car. Stop looking at me.
So stupid. That was after crashing it into the wall at the high school. I mean, like, are you sober enough to drive now, dude? And he was like, no. So I was like, okay. But, obviously we don't fucking condone that. But I mean, these are things that happen when you're ripping and roaring. And we got to his house and it was just like, he was just like this suburban kid and gave us all these clean punk shirts. We just ate all the food and drank all the beer. And then we're on our way. In Dallas, we went from to San Antonio first or Austin.
I have to look at a map, but I think it was Austin because we split up in San Antonio, didn't we? Or just after that?
Just after, yeah. So we went to Austin, and that was like we're walking. We got busted. We're trying to sleep like behind this parking lot, and the cop gave us all this shit about urban camping. You don't fuck around. You can't sleep down here. I'm like, whatever. And we're walking down the Butthole Surfer's house. We found it and went there, and the kid was like, "You can stay here. They're not here, but you can stay here if you wash the dishes." And we're like, "No, we're not gonna fucking stay here and wash the dishes. We thought we could meet the Butthole Surfers. We're not gonna wash. Like, who the fuck are you? I wasn't even gonna wash their dishes. Never mind you." So we just fucked off and hit the drag, and then that's where we met that. We had a bag of bagels, somebody like a garbage bag full of bagels, right?
Yeah.
And then we met the kid. He was like trying to hustle people with a miniature pool table on the sidewalk. And then so we're like, hey, we just started up a conversation with him, playing pool. And then you see his ear. He had like an ear gauge, like a gauger, right? Like one of the big hole, like ear stretcher in his earlobe that had been ripped out. So he had two pieces of earlobe just hanging there apart. And you're like, oh, your fucking ear is gross, man. And he's like, I know. I want to get it fixed. And you're like, fuck, I'll fix it for you. You're like, Twitch, give me your knife. And I'm like, whoa, Star. You're like, give me the fucking knife. Give me your sewing kit. So I give you the shit. And you're like, fuck. Oh, no, it was scissors. Like weed scissors.
I was trying to be helpful.
Yeah, you took those little foldy weed scissors. That's what it was. The little tiny ones that fold up. You unfold them and you're just like, snip, snip. Like cut the inner sides of the kid's ear. And he's just like, ah! You're like, shut up, man. You're all right. And then you fucking thread up a needle with dental floss and stick it in his ear and then pull it through once. And he's like, oh, and you're like, shut up. You're all right. And you go to put it back and you're like, oh, nah, it's not going to work, man. He's like, what? It was like blood. I remember the blood was like filling the little pockets of the little pool table. It was just like dripping down his neck.
I don't know, like what why was he just not like, get the fuck away from
I don't know. I can't speak for him or you. All I know is what I see. Because then you're like, give me that duct tape, and you're just like, and just wrapped his head, his ear around his head, and then you're like, well, sorry, man. then I was just like, you want a bagel? He was like, no. That was it. That was Austin. And then it was San Antone, and that was really fun because
San
that was,
Antonio?
yeah,
Yes.
that's the double-decker city with the river I was talking about that runs around all underneath it. And
Alamo.
the Alamo is there, and fuck.
My alter ego, Nicole Kelly Walsh, a
Oh,
dumpster baby from New York. You don't remember that?
no, what's this?
We got I don't know why. I don't know what it was for. I think maybe it was for being drunk in public or something. But it was when we were at the Alamo and there was that guy that was like preaching. Do you remember the preacher guy that wouldn't shut up?
Yeah.
And I was drunk and I was like yelling back at him and I was like, oh, fucking, fuck off, whatever. And the cops came and they gave me a ticket. They put me in handcuffs and everything, but then they just gave me a ticket to appear at court. And that's when I was like, I came up with this. I was like, my name's Nicole Kelly Walsh. I'm a dumpster baby from New York. That's exactly how you were. I was like, equal parts trying to like hold up this weird skit. And then you would be there like doing just what you're doing now. And I'd be like, come on, you're
Well, dumpster baby from New York.
and I got a bunch of like I was basically able to use those tickets as ID through the rest of the time I was in the States. But I remember that, and I remember being handcuffed. And then I remember at some point this person came by and like gave me money because I was panhandling and you weren't there. And do you remember I had to like lean over and put my head on a little rock seat thing to hold the dollar bill down so it wouldn't fly away until the cops took my handcuffs off? I remember you came up and you're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, can you get the dollar bill?
Yeah.
It's gonna fly away until they take my handcuffs off.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody tried to buy your dog everywhere we went. Like every single place. They're just trying to buy your dog. And it was like you were getting so mad, like so mad. But it was like, I think I was probably like, shit, man, maybe you should just sell the dog,
That's when you got your dog. You got your dog in San Antonio.
Right. Bunch of kids in that squat. We had like a corner office. We were squatting at this office building downtown San Antonio, and these kids were in there. They came along.
No, those kids weren't there. Do you remember? They were sleeping in some shit place. Do you remember that? And we were like, they're like, well, where are you guys staying?
Well,
Like,
the fucking Taj Mahal. Yeah, we brought them over, but then they're partying and they were fucking abusing this dog, this little mini collie dog. They're like fucking throwing bottles at it and like putting cigarettes at it, and like I took the dog on my lap and was like, "Fuck you guys, don't fuck around." Like, because that's how it went down. It was like, don't fucking fuck with this dog, or you're gonna fuck with me. Like, you're not
I
gonna
thought
watch.
we saw kids that were treating it bad one day, and we were like, "Whose fucking dog is that?" And then it turned out that it was Angel's dog.
No, it was right in the moment. That guy was like, "Yeah, take that dog. I'm a slacker. I will only fucking kill that dog. You can have it." I was like, "Oh, great, thanks." So then I had this abused dog that was like, like totally traumatized with me, and then that's why we had to split up, because we were two people with two dogs. Your dog was not getting less pregnant, It was like, fuck. Then that's when we split up, and then that's when it got even weirder, because then it was like everything dawned on me then when I was alone, like, oh, this isn't cool at all. And then I got scared. Like, all that crazy shit was like, at least we were together. You had a friend, right? Even when we thought that trucker was gonna shoot us in the Kentucky mountains, like, I was like, well, I wasn't as scared as I was at the side of the road when we split up.
I remember us looking at each other across this like,
Yeah.
6 foot wide guy being like, what the fuck? I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
It was beautiful though.
Yeah, it's a nice spot. He knows.
Nice. Glad I got to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Then
That But Angel, do you remember Angel? Remember him with his teeth?
No, that was the guy who owned the dog. He was like, I just remember he was, I don't, he's a piece of shit with a fucking dog who was abusing his dog.
So here's how the yarn spins different ways. What I remember is we were hanging out with a group of people that talked him up like crazy. And they were like, oh, Angel, he's this big crazy guy. And they had the dog and they were treating it shit. And then another night, like the next night or something, he came around and he drank with us. And me and you and him got along good that night. And it was fine. Jib was there. And he was the one that was telling us all the stuff where he's like, people try to say I'm a wetback. I'm a scratch Billy. I crawled right underneath the fence. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And then he's like, he was missing his teeth. And we were like, wanted to ask him, and people had talked him up and made him to be this like big. So we were like, so like Angel, what? And all night he kept being like, oh, I don't want to tell that story. I don't want to get into it. And then finally he's like, okay. He's like, so one time I was in New Mexico. It was really hot outside. And I went in the 7-Eleven to get a freezy, and I just passed out right on the floor and knocked my teeth out. Paramedics said it was heat exhaustion.
Could have happened to anyone. Yeah.
What?
It's pretty anticlimactic. Yeah, you think it's some crazy like pistol whip.
Crazy, all night. We were like, come on, tell us. Like, how'd you lose your? Oh no, I can't tell it. Oh no, don't want to tell that story. And
I didn't hydrate properly.
I know. He was like, paramedics said it was heat exhaustion. And then after that, after he told the story, he was like, you had Jib on your lap. And we were telling him, we were like, this dog is not being treated well. And he was like, you should keep that dog.
Okay. I'll buy that for a nickel. I kind of, that kind of jives. I kind of melded it all together. Like all these people were pieces of shit abusing this dog. But I know we saw people fucking doing bad things to that dog.
It was. And they were also the ones that were talking him up and saying like he was this crazy, wild fucking guy. And then we hung out with him and we were like, yeah, he's a mess, but he's not a shitty guy.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's all right. Didn't keep the dog long. As soon as I met my first ride, this trucker picked me up and it loved him. Like it wouldn't even like acknowledge me because I guess I just smelled like squat, and all those people was afraid of me too, as nice as I was to it. But as soon as I got a ride, when we parted ways, it jumped on this trucker and just loved him. And he was like, oh my God, look at this. And he loved her, and I was just like, you just got yourself a dog.
Like we weren't the main characters. This was just this heartwarming Disney movie about a dog being it's
this summer from Walt Disney Studios. Squat dog.
That's right. We were just like, the pre-plot.
Yeah.
All that shit.
We were just supporting characters.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, then it got weird. So that dog, Jib, found a happy home with that friendly trucker. He brought her home to his kids for Christmas. And then he was cool. He gave me his number and stuff. He told me a crazy story. He said I was the first hitchhiker he'd picked up since the last hitchhiker he had picked up, who he had befriended and ended up loving like a son, and would bring him home. And he lived at his house with him and his family. And every time he'd take a long haul, he'd take him out on the road because he was a traveler kid, and he would go between his house and the road all the time, until one day the kid just turned and looked at him and said, thanks for everything, man. And then opened the door of the cab of the truck and just fucking bailed and killed himself. And he shut the truck off and didn't ride truck for years. And he had just gotten back into it and had sworn he wouldn't pick up a hitchhiker, but he just said it was something about you. It was just like there was something about him. I had to pick you up. And he gave me his number, and he picked me up again a few times, like through the rest of my travels, as I tried to get back up north to Canada. I ended up calling him, and he would be around, and he got me out of a few tough spots. One truck stop, they were accusing me of stealing from trucks, and he like vouched for me. He's like, no, I just dropped this kid off, like, and they knew him because he's like an old timer, right? And he's like, I gave him a pocket full of money, and he's not a thief. And, and he's like, told them like, you leave him alone. And they did. So it's like, he's like one of those guardian angels, that you meet out there. Crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then it's just like, I had to go do just like you did. Like I was looking for you. I was like, I'm going to find her again in other towns. We're still going to, like hang out at every place I'd be like looking for Star. And they'd be like, yeah, we met your friend Star. She, got in a fight with my wife. And then, like we hate that. We hate her. It's like, holy geez. And that happened a couple times until I stopped asking. I was just like, I'm not looking for Star anymore. It's not getting me anywhere. I wasn't finding you anyway. You were like ahead of me every step of the way. So it was like a lost cause. And then I had to go that's when I went over to San Diego and then down into Tijuana and then back up. I went through all like LA and all that shit by myself and got all the way back up into, Washington and Portland and all that shit. Portland's first, right? And then Washington, and then back into Vancouver. And then went to my uncle's house at the military base on Vancouver Island. And that's when I took the mushrooms and flew home on the airplane and met Tags and Harry back at the bank machine on Spadina. And then after all of that, the first thing we did was heroin. But you went and did all that. You were down there. I got back before you, right? You stayed down. You were like, yeah, you were like, where you were when you liked, what, LA? You were in Hollywood, or where were you at?
I was in, well, first I went to Tempe. I spent some time in Tempe. Saw who ended up being your good friend too, Lance there, and spent some time with Lance in Tempe, and then, kept moving along and ended up in, where did I end up? Santa Barbara. I lived in Santa Barbara for a while on TV Hill with Bob Hope. That was fun. That's where Ivy had her puppies.
On TV Hill. Rest in peace, Lance Romance.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Bob Hope. And
rest in peace, Ivy.
Yeah. And actually, yeah. And then this, I ended up in San Francisco with 3 dogs and 2 puppies and a shopping cart. Like the whole goal when we left San Antonio, that we wanted to pare down the amount of animals that we were traveling with.
I did it.
I failed in that miserably, to the point where I almost picked up a seal at one point when I was hitchhiking. And then I was like, look back at the 3 dogs and puppies that I had and was like, well, where am I going to fit a seal in with this mix?
You know how they say seal in French?
Yeah, I do. Do you?
Fuck.
And then I spent I went to San Francisco in an effort to not get strung out in Toronto or New York or Vancouver. I went to San Francisco to the Tenderloin. I worked out super well.
Yeah.
Super well. Yeah.
Same for me. I started when I got into Tijuana, and then I was like, oh, I got a taste, and then just tic-tacked all the way. Every step of the way, it was like, yum, 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 yum. And then it was like,
geographical cure.
Yeah. Did you get to see Northern California though, like on the road?
I did. And I'm still friends with them, Val, who is one of the people who, I'm really lucky that I would often be a real mess. Like I wasn't the best person to know when I was drinking, but I always had a way. Like with you, I know that you helped get me out a lot of spots where people would get to know me a little bit and be like, no, she's having a hard time, but she's all right. And Val was like that. And her family lived in Sonoma County. And she got me out of San Francisco for a while, me and Ivy. And it was real nice. Beautiful. Actually reminds me, it's like a more green, a lusher, and moderately temperatured southwestern Ontario, Northern California.
Yeah. Like the Grass Valley, I think, is where it is, where you can see the ocean and the redwoods and the Rockies all in the same panorama. And it's like,
I never got to see those views, but yeah,
I seen it. I want to see that again. Out of all that shit, I'd like to go back to to Texas. Was a trip. I'd like to go back down to San Antonio, but properly, not with like,
see if Dick's is still running.
See what? Dick's, yeah.
See if Dick's is still open.
Where the customer is always wrong.
Yeah.
Like, we'll get a banquet burger. You're having chicken fingers.
Like how come we don't work there? We could work there.
They should have
But
hired us on the spot. If I was writing that movie,
yeah,
that's where we would have, got our
seriously,
shit together.
free, just waiting for the tourist boats to come by and say,
Yeah.
"Hola."
Hola. Yeah. Man, we could have fucking had a franchise, a Dick's franchise on there.
And then I went to live in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I left Colorado and came back to Canada. And I found you, and you were living in like a little house behind Megan's.
Yes.
Again.
Like a converted garage.
And there was all this like nervousness about when me and you saw each other. We were like, oh, what happened? Because I had ended up being there for way longer. And there was no cell phones. Nobody was like checking emails. Nobody knew what the fuck.
No. I was just glad you were alive. Like there was no hard feelings. We were homies, and then we decided.
I remember we hammed it up though. Do you remember that?
Yeah, for that was for everyone else's benefit.
For everyone else, we like acted like, oh, and then we were like, oh.
Yeah. Of course. Like as if we're like, what's the beef? We decided like we got to split up here. These dogs are nuts. We're not going to get a ride.
Yeah.
And who knows how it would have went, right? Like. Who knows? Maybe the next trucker would have fucking, bodied us off the side of a beautiful cliff, and that would have been the end of it, right? Everything for a reason, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'm sure I learned some valuable lessons on my solo mission on the West Coast. It was fucked. Like, that's where, like when I was with you. Everybody wanted to buy the dog. Just sell us the dog. We could fight this dog and make a lot of money. And then when we split up, everybody was a pervert. Everyone who picked me up just wanted to fucking take me to Dairy Queen and fuck me. And like, it was like, what the fuck happened here? Like it was like, holy shit. Like, it was like so many pervs. Just like, we can have 3 options on this trip, boy. It's like, what the fuck is this? Weird people in weird hats, like weird fur hats, and like through the desert, and like through Phoenix and all that shit, and like racist truckers, taking me through Vegas. Went through Vegas in an 18-wheeler full of toxic waste, like through the desert. And the guy's like, if I get here late on Friday, they're going to have to give me a hotel for the weekend. Like, okay. And he's like watching the place close from down the street. And then the radio's on, it's raining. And that's when Chris Farley died. And I was like, oh, man. He's like, why? Yeah. He's like, why? You know that guy? I'm like, well, sort of, it's Chris Farley, man.
Why not?
Yeah. If you don't know him, you don't know him. But if you do, you do. A sad day. And then he was just like racist and horrible, and he gave me $100. He got a hotel, and then I went to the casino with him, and he's like, here's $100, fuck off. I was like, gladly. And then I won like a whole bunch of money, like thousands of dollars at the casino, like jackpot on a fucking on a slot machine. And I just bought a beer and burgers, like a big burger and fry combo, and just ate it and was like that. And then I dipped on that guy. I was like, I'm not hanging out with this asshole. I got some money. Then I walked off the strip, and out of the glitz, and was like, oh yeah, shit. Everybody's not a winner. There's it's like, whoa, just looking for that.
Las Vegas, you and Niagara Falls got a few things in common.
Hey, it's like a big old St. Catharines down this road. Yeah, it's nasty, but you got to go, where you got to go. And, tick tack up. And then the army base was crazy too. I stayed there, and my feet were so bad from that trip. Like in the middle of that trip, like I had to get a book at the library to see what the highways look like. Cause it's like a spider web coming out of Phoenix, right? It's like all the overpasses, every highway in all of the states is like flowing into LA. Right. So it's like by the Phoenix, it's just nuts. And this cop that's where the cop pulled me over. I was trying to hitchhike, and I was spray painted green. These kids spray painted me green at the bridge, right? And robbed me while I was sleeping. It was like, I didn't know I was green yet. I just was like, fuck these guys. A kid was getting arrested for punching out his girlfriend. The cops were there. I just slid down the bridge and was like, I'm not with these. I'm from Canada. I'm not with this. I just left. And this cop pulls me over trying to hitchhike, and he's like, why are you so green, boy? And I'm like, well, I wouldn't say I was green. I'm not from around here, but I know my, I can take care of myself. He's like, no, why are you so fucking green? And I'm like, I actually take offense to that. I'm a little, I'm quite seasoned. I've been all through, I went to, a lot of dangerous neighborhoods, and I'm just fine. And
Everywhere, man.
he grabs me and brings me over to his motorcycle, like state trooper, right? They got their hand on their gun, like 7 feet tall, like pushes my head down to the mirror in the motorcycle. I'm like, my whole beard and my face is like green. And I'm just like, I start laughing because we're like, just at the sight of it, like, and it was a surprise, right? It was like, whoa. And I said, well, it ain't easy, and he's just like, he's like, here's what you're gonna do. He starts writing me a citation. And I'm like, okay, let me stop you right there. What if he's like, you're going to get into a residential area and get off this highway. Cause he drags me to the other side of the bridge. And there's a giant billboard that says state prison within 3 miles. Do not pick up hitchhikers. I'm like, oh, that's why everybody was throwing pop bottles at me and honking and shit. Okay. He's like, you're going to get into a residential area and you're not going to hitchhike. And I'm like, what if I crumpled up this citation? Like, would you take me to jail and like actually feed me? Like, and I could lay down on a bed? And he's just looking at me like, what? I'm like, if I crumple that up as a warning, then would I be arrested and you'd have to take me and feed me? He's like, I would not advise you to crumple that citation up, son. And he's like, you're going to get over that fence and get into that residential area. And it's like a giant fence with like razor wire, I crawl it and slice my wrist open on the fence and fall into this like ditch. I crawl out of a ditch, and there's these 2 kids playing at the end of this road. It's like a dead end road that goes to the highway. And I just crawl up out of the ditch, and I'm all green and bleeding. And they're like, the kid like screamed. He was like, ah! They ran away. Then I just fucking booted her all around town. Because every drop-in center I went to, they said, oh yeah, you can go to this place. They'll give you a bus ticket home. Operation Go Home. Operation Go Home. So I'm just like, jumping from shelter to shelter, and they're like, no, you gotta go, they do it over here now, and my fucking feet are so bad because I just walked through the desert, right? Because I walked forever until I saw like the yellow light, and it was like, oh, and it was Waffle House, and I was like, yes. But they're like, you got to go to this place, you got to go to this place. Then these other old home bums beat me up and like broke my ribs and shit. I went to try and like sleep there, and they stole coins I had in my harmonica and shit. I was like, fuck, I would have gave you that shit, guys. Like, what the fuck is, well, how corrupt can you be? But I guess you're a deranged homeless man sleeping under a bridge in a hobo jungle, right? Like that's my choice, right? I could have went somewhere else, but I don't blame them. But it's just, it's like excuses and reasons, right? It's choices. But my feet were bleeding so bad on the bottom of my feet that it was coming out of the top of my docks. Like, it was, when I'd step down, it would squirt blood out of the top of my boots. And it was like, oh, I was afraid to look, right? And I get to the final place, and they're like, yes, we have Operation Go Home. I can print you a Greyhound ticket right here at the counter. Where did you say you were from? And I was like, oh my God, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And they're like, oh, sorry, we don't do Canada. And I was like, oh, Detroit, Michigan. And they're like, do you have any ID that says you're from Detroit? I was like, I don't have any ID that says I'm from anywhere. And they're like, sorry, here, we can give you a bag lunch and a city bus ticket. Have a nice day. And I was like, oh. That's when I went to the library, got the map, fucking got across and got out of there, because you have to like run across all these highways and shit. It was nuts. So I was on that kind of trip. It was like, I was totally solo. I didn't trust anybody. I got beat up by old men who I liked because they reminded me of my grandpa. So I was conflicted, I was like not trusting anybody. It was like perverts and like, violent home bums. I was like, I'm not talking to nobody. And then I got sick asking about where you were. Everybody seemed to hate you. You were on some kind of, some kind of tour, some Viking tour of pillaging their villages, but they weren't having it. And then I was like, yeah, got to Hollywood, jumped out of the truck and was all excited. And there's like 2 dudes like shooting dice. They're like, what? And I was like, nothing. like Buddy the Elf or something, And then saw a guy went to
There's
Hollywood.
got a lot of Titanic memorabilia around here. That's what I remember about Hollywood.
I just saw a guy take a shit in Hollywood, was like, whoa, gross. And then I just wanted to get the fuck out. I want out. I want out. I got it up as quick as I could, and then like back home to Canada. And the first person I met when I got back to Canada down at the bus station in Vancouver, pervert, tries to pick me up, and I was like, "Fuck off, man! I'm not, you know." Like I just ate out of that garbage can. Like how fucked up are you? Like that, you're like a chicken hawk.
Tasting.
Yeah, well, it's a crazy world out there, kids. But I always think about that trip.
The first trucker that I got after I left San Antonio, I got in his, cab, and he was like, "Where are you from?" And I had Ivy with me, and I was like, "Well, I'm from Canada." And he was like, "No, you're not." He's like, "Well, like, you can just tell me where you're from." And I was like, "Oh, I am from Canada." But, go in the truck for a while, and he's trying to get my real story out of me. And then at one point, we're driving through New Mexico, and there's tumbleweed. It's the first time I've ever seen it, not in a cartoon or in a movie. And so I sit up and I go, "Oh my God." I was like, "It's tumbleweed." And he was like, "Oh, so you really are from Canada."
Yeah.
And when I ended up in the hospital in Los Angeles, I ended up in LA General. That was a mess too. My throat closed up. Had to go to a free clinic in South Central Los Angeles, and then they called an ambulance to send me. That was crazy. I was like sitting beside people with like stab wounds, and they're like, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, but meanwhile they're like bleeding to death. And same thing, I get into the hospital and I'm trying to like lie, because I'm like, do I get treated if I say I'm from Canada? Like, I don't know if I understand how anything works. And the doctor there is like, you're not from New York, Nicole.
You're not a dumpster baby from New York,
not a dumpster
Nicole.
baby from New York, Nicole. That's a good story. But no, we're gonna give you
New Jersey.
We're gonna give you a little bottle of codeine if you show up here every week, no matter where you're from. And I'm like, "Okay, cool. My name's Star. I'm from Canada." Fix what's happening here. Yeah. It was a weird thing to be in this weird identity, I don't know, place. The only place that you feel like you are who you are is when I was with people that I knew from Canada, from traveling like that didn't, everybody was all over the place then.
Yeah. And now when you think about it, like, I'm glad I did it, because it was like quite the experience. But like, you have a kid. I have kids now.
20 in a couple months.
Yeah. See, he was the same age. Imagine him there. You can't. Right?
No, he argued with me about doing the dishes after I made pulled pork in the slow cooker tonight.
Yeah, he has no idea. He has no idea. Oh my God.
No,
Yeah.
I can't imagine it. But I also I don't think that the kind of, it just doesn't exist anymore.
No, that was the that was the window.
That was the window. You couldn't get away with the kind of things that we were doing then. It was before 9/11.
Before cell phones.
Yeah, there's no sneaking across the border with a fucking bag full of weed and a pit bull in the wheel well of the car, like fake ID. That wasn't happening. Like, you can't do that, right? Borders is borders. I mean, I know people still do. I know people still hop freight across the border and stuff like that. But
well, I heard that they have like thermal imaging on freight trains and shit, like at the border, so they find bodies sneaking across. Like that's almost completely like ended now too. Is that real?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Real?
But I know that, I see a lot of the hardships that kids go through now. And I think part of the reasons why those are the way they are is because they've strangled the community. You can't be out there. There's poison drug supply. It's a mess. Anyway, so I'm glad that we did it.
Yeah. I'm glad we survived. We lived to tell the tale.
Lived to tell the tale. And there's so many other tales. That fucking, when I climbed out on the, what is it? What are they called? Billboard? You remember that? That was on top of the building?
Yeah, that was in San Antonio on the roof of the squat of the fucking office building. You're like swinging on the scaffolding of the billboard.
I'm climbing on the billboard, and you were so angry at me, and you were like, "Just calm down." And I was like, "Not unless you come up here with me." You were so angry at me.
I did though.
You did. You did.
To get you down, I crawled up and had a swing with you. There, we swang over the edge. Now, can we get down and not die?
I have to say, in those days, when we did that trip to the States, like you were paying it forward because like we're not going to get into that today, but there was many other times in Canada afterwards where I was the straight man in those situations with you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you were paying it forward in the States. So
That was my karmic debt. I was a late bloomer. Yeah. So I had credit. I was building credit, working on my credit.
and it put me in a situation, years later and stuff where I was like, I have to. There was a fucking building, do you know where you're? And I'm like, you don't understand.
There's a billboard in San Antonio. It's a long story. I gotta help this guy out.
It's the seagull's dead. First of all, you're overreacting.
Oh my God. You stab one guy in the face with a dead seagull. Doesn't matter what. It's like, you fuck one sheep. You can build all the churches you want. You think they'll remember you? But you fuck one sheep.
Yeah.
If you could fight any celebrity or historical figure, living or dead, who would it be?
Oh, I don't know.
Just fight.
I guess today I'd pick Molly Shannon.
No, you really? You
I
hate her?
think it'd be good. Oh no. I just, it would be an opportunity to be near her. You can make a lot of money from these celebrity boxing matches today. I mean, I think that it would be a fair fight.
I think it would be. I wouldn't let you do it.
You wouldn't let me do it?
No. Mary Catherine Gallagher? No. She's lovely. No.
I'm lovely.
Yeah, no. I know.
So
All right, though. It's your choice. It's your choice.
Yeah.
I'm not. What?
I have to pick again. I can't pick Molly Shannon.
No, that's your choice. It's just telling. I'm surprised. I never would have guessed.
If it was like to fight a celebrity that I really don't like.
To hurt them.
To hurt? Oh. Like the way you want to fight Jared Leto.
Yeah. To beat them up legally and maybe even make some money for the charity of yourself. Who?
Geraldo.
Geraldo Rivera?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like 70 years old. I love it.
Again,
I'll allow it. I'll allow it. As long as you hit him with a chair.
Geraldo, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kurt Vonnegut also hated Geraldo because he was married to his daughter and cheated on her.
Yeah, that guy did a whole bunch of bad things.
Yeah. And yeah.
Any one of those hosts of the TLC shows where they like put kids in boot camp?
Yeah.
Love me up.
Yeah, I'll promote that. We'll get that on the bill. I'll take Geraldo for sure. Definitely. Star, I love you so much.
I love you too, man.
I'm glad you're alive.
I'm glad I'm alive too. I'm glad you're alive.
Yep,
this is hilarious.
I know.
Because we're like,
I know.
today we're going to be talking on the computer.
Yeah, there will be a pod. We'll cast from there.
I would have been like, just keep walking, buddy, and give me some change. Tell me something.
Fucking walk off. Just walk off the cliff, asshole. Just shut your fucking mouth. I'm from Canada.
Just do a backflip right off that billboard. Anyways, I love you too, man. Say hi to the girls for me.
Yes, the girls send all their love, and we're going to see you as soon as we can.
Yeah.
You'd be good, all right? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course, man. See you later.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about being alone at that truck stop when I got to that Waffle House, and I was just sitting there. My feet were bleeding so bad, and I just crawled up to the door, and the truck stop security guard came out and told me, if you so much as talk to one of these truckers, I will kick your ass. And I didn't have any fight left in me, and I just was like, I couldn't even talk. I was so parched. He could have gave me some water. I watched a trucker who was actually a little person this little dude jumps out of a big 18-wheeler, and I thought I was hallucinating, and he just throws all this garbage in the garbage can on his way into the truck stop, and I looked, and it looked like heavy, so I ran over, and it was like a bag of Doritos and like water bottles, and I was like, fuck it. Probably saved my life for real. Thanks, little man. And then the truck driver freaked out over and over and over, and I was like, dude, just let me make a sign, and I won't say a word, right? So he gave me a pink highlighter and an empty cigarette pack, and I just wrote L.A., and the ink was run out of the highlighter, so it was just like a faint pink L.A. on this little tiny cigarette package, and that was my sign to get out of there. And luckily a truck driver was like, dude, you know, after 2 days, he was like, you've been here longer than me, man. You ever been to Vegas? And I was like, no. He's like, let's go. And he bought me a shower, bought me tacos and a sixer of Corona, and he's like, I'll just live vicariously through you. You just eat and drink, and you know, you're all good. And he was cool. He was chill. But that story, I always remember it because it was like the closest I was with somebody in my life, like a friendship, like the kinship of road dogs is like nothing else. And was the closest I was with someone, and the most alone I was in the same trip. Like I was really desolate, broken down outside Baton Rouge. But yeah, I'll always remember Star. I forgot to ask her where she wants to go now, but hopefully I'll have the chance to ask her at a later date. I never take for granted the friends I have left. When you lose so many friends as I have, you really see how grateful you are for the ones that are left, and you never take it for granted. If you got a good friend that you got a good story with and you lived with, and you got history, reach out and you know, reminisce, because it's good for the heart, the soul, the body, and the mind. Let the peace be with you. Let the peace be known. I'll see you next time on Spinnin' Yarns.
Spinnin' Yarns is brought to you by Hi-Fi Umbilical Productions. We're 100% DIY with zero tolerance for intolerance. Spinnin' Yarns is recorded on stolen land in front of a live studio audience. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Gmail, and Linktree at Yarn Spinnin'. Please like, follow, and share to show your support. We're building this together. Spinnin' Yarns is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else you kids go for podcasts these days. Check out our Patreon if you'd like to help out the show, and you can always find us on the web at our landing site, joeamero.com.
If you'd like to be a guest on the show, reach out. Let's shoot the shit. We're just spinning yarns, connecting with respect and respecting the connections. Peace be with you, and let the peace be known.